Hi. Wow, that's hard. Yes, come in, sit down. All right, we're going to talk about switching on DevSecOps. Who likes the word DevSecOps? Nobody, right? I hate it. I hate the word DevSecOps. It's like your grandfather trying to talk slang to his grandchildren and being the cool guy. It's like we're having this cool DevOps kind of thing, which is a nice abbreviation, but now we have to focus on security and put that in the middle because, well, security is everywhere. But so what's the next thing? Dev migration ops, dev serverless op, whatever. I hate the word, but the meaning of it is very, very important. So I'm going to talk about DevSecOps and how to integrate that. But first, who am I? I'm Brian. I'm a developer advocate for Snyk, and well, yeah, I do something with the Utrecht Jug. I'm a co-lead on the secure developer community. So if you are interested in development and being secure, go to thesecuredeveloper.com and just register. We have tons of good material and talks over there. But DevSecOps, first of all, we're trying to solve something. But what is the problem? I mean, nowadays, we are trying to speed up our development. I mean, normally, like 10 years ago, we might deploy once a week or once a month or once a year. Now, in my company, it's twice a day. But security is not in our mindset. I mean, we think about features. We want to have more features. We want to have better features. We want to be better, faster, stronger than our competitors. But security, well, we have the security stuff guys, right? At the end, they will say if it's good or not. Well, that means that actually we have a lack of focus on security because normally developers do not care that much. And that is exactly the problem because security departments are siloed. They're at the end of that thing just before production and they say, no, you cannot go to production because we found vulnerabilities. And you're like, but man, I worked on this for 2 months. Really? Now you're coming up with this? So the point is we want to shift that more to the left side. Like, if we as teams are more focused on security, maybe we can prevent that at the end. Somebody will stop us and be the evil gatekeeper, like, stop, you cannot go to production. But in the meantime, we already found out. Because ultimately, what we need to do is take care of our customer data, right? And some people say, wow, it's not that important. But who heard of Equifax? Nobody heard of Equifax? Who heard of Equifax like 2 years ago? A few, but that's great marketing. What they did, they used an old struts library, and there was a vulnerability disclosed in the struts library. But at that point, they didn't take care of it, and then they didn't upgrade fast enough. It ended up with 143 million records were exposed, and, well, that became a famous hack. So Equifax is famous. And attackers were in that system for months because, well, they were just focusing on new features and not on the security breach that was in that open source struts library. Talking about open source. Say, for instance, this is your app, your application. Then we may consider that the code you write is actually only this. I mean, we depend heavily on frameworks, on libraries, on open source dependencies we use every day. For instance, take Spring Boot, or if you are a JavaScript developer, take any NPM package. It downloads the whole internet into your app, right? Yeah, it's easy to pick on JavaScript here. I mean, for instance, if we have this Spring serverless example, it has 222 lines of code and 5 dependencies. That means by these 5 dependencies, they have dependencies, so-called transitive dependencies. In the end, we have 54 dependencies. How many lines of code will be there in your production system? Almost 500,000. So the majority of the code is not yours. You're just using it. So what do you think if an open source package is there is a vulnerability disclosed, and people are using this open source package very heavily? People just randomly shoot at you and try to break in. They're trying to explore that. Equifax wasn't the one that was hacked on purpose. People just tried out and found out, oh, you're using this struts library. Let's dig in. we heavily depend on open source. And open source usage has exploded the last few years. Well, not the last few years, the last decade. But we have to know that open source is open source. That means open source is not particularly secure, nor is open source insecure. It's in between. It's just code. But if we look, for instance, at the report we did like 2 months ago, the state of open source security, then we see for the different package systems, for different ecosystems, we saw that the last year, the total packages that were indexed massively increased. NPM is the big winner, of course, because it's NPM, you need a package for everything. But also, Maven Central had a lot, over 100,000 added packages in their ecosystem. And if we look at the vulnerabilities that were disclosed each year per ecosystem, we are the clear winner. Well, Maven Central is the clear winner. So you see that by using this, you might be at risk. Might be at risk. I don't say don't use open source security. Don't use open source. You should use open source, but you should be careful. Don't blindly trust. Because if we look at these dependencies, most of the problems are not in the dependency itself, but in the indirect dependencies. For instance, well, some Spring Boot fans over here, you might use an older version of Spring Boot which has a vulnerability in some of the Jackson libraries, which may or may not be important to your system. And if we ask maintainers of that open source security how confident they are on their own security skills, well, 30% said, well, I'm good enough. 63% said, I don't know. And 7% said, well, I don't care, basically. So should we trust them blindly? But if we ask the same people, and it were developers and open source maintainers that we asked, who is responsible for security? Most of them say it's a shared responsibility between developers and operations and maybe the security team even. But 81% of the respondents believe that developers have a significant role. But honestly, most of the developers do not care because I've got this project manager that wants me to build in new features. And new features, we have to scale up. We need to do this new thing. And what about security? Well, if we're not get hacked, it's okay, right? Until you got. So how do you find out about vulnerabilities? Well, 27% of developers probably don't. They just got hacked, and maybe they found out. But what is the solution to this? The solution is not just tooling. It consists of 3 major things: team culture, process, and tooling. They are equally important. Just tooling doesn't help you. Just another process doesn't help you. Team culture is maybe team culture is even the most important one, because, what do we care about? We have different things in mind, right? We as developers try to create new, shiny features. That's what we care about, new stuff. It has to work. The security guys, they don't care if it's working. They just care about the fact that you're not breached and no data gets out. If it's not working, it's fine because, well, you won't get breached, right? Operations, they don't care about either. They just want to have low maintenance. And management, they care about money. So getting this at the same pace and thinking about every stakeholder's position, you might need to change that team culture. Because as a developer, you might think of security. So going to process in that case, you need to adapt process, people say. But I don't agree with them, because people do not want to change. Basically, we may say we want to change, but we do not. Like in 2 weeks, we're back to square one, right? So we need to find a way or a practice that we can include in the current process. So not adapting a complete process or recreating a new process, but tiny modifications to that process where the major flow is still the same, but now we can help you with things like tooling. So tooling is an option. Tooling is good. you need to use tools, because I as a developer do not want to care about if this dependency is vulnerable or not. I want something else to take care of that. Just like, for instance, well, say static code analysis, maybe it doesn't perform right, or why we have plugins like find bugs. We want to have tooling. And I want this tooling not to be that interruptive in my process that I still can keep going and continue developing the way I do. Talking about tooling, I'm going to show you a few of the tools, and it's not that I work for this company, but it's just to give you a spike that tooling is not just used in one place, because most of the time, people use tooling just in one place, like in their CI environment. Like we use a scanning tool or whatever in our CI environment, and at that point, we use it as a gatekeeper, which is good. But I would say, why not introduce the same tooling, for instance, to your developer? I have a project over here, and I installed the Snyk CLI, which does simply checking out your dependency tree and your transitive dependencies, send it over, and gives you back a result. By doing a simple Snyk test on my local machine here, and hopefully the internet works, it will give me back a result. And you see that in this app, of course it's vulnerable because I have to show something, right? We will give you like the problem at what is it, where can I find more information, what core package is it introduced to, and most important, what is the remediation advice. By just going from 3 to 20 to 337 might or does solve this particular vulnerability. And if I give these kind of tools to my developers, and my developers can scan before they commit the code or their POM file or whatever to their master repo, then I'm already better than I was, right? I do not want to do rework because my CI environment just crashes because of a deep down vulnerability I didn't know of. That has been said, you have to do it, or I think you also need to do it like integration with your repos. I mean, what's a dependency, or what's a problem, or what's an okay dependency now might be a problem in 2 weeks, because vulnerabilities will be disclosed every single day. By scanning your repo and integrating with your, in this case, GitHub repo, we can scan your stuff and we can see if there are vulnerabilities and transitive vulnerabilities. That's a good thing. I mean, new pull requests can be fixed, can be monitored. And by not adding new stuff in, you might get through your security gateway easier, and your security team might even like you. So, last but not least, why not integrate these things just in your IDE? For instance, plugins. We have a lot of plugins. We have plugins for code completion. We have plugins for code sanity, for finding bugs, for whatever reason. Why not include this in your development cycle to do so? And when you did this and you tried it out and it worked and your CI environment is cool as well, you still need to monitor. Why? Because if it's in production, you're not done. If it's in production, it is alive. From that point on, new vulnerabilities can be disclosed. The average is 2.5 years before a vulnerability is found in a certain package. So that means people are working on an ancient struts library or Spring Boot library, have it in production, may not change it, but you need to take a snapshot of that and scan it maybe every day, because I do not want to be interruptive. I want to get alerted at the point that somebody found one. So, main message. We have 3 things: team culture, process, and tooling. They're equivalent. You need tooling to help you out. You need a team culture, you need the willingness of everybody to be on the same page. And the process that you need to cover must be as close as the process that you already have. I want to conclude with the last slide, is like we need to shift security more left. That means not as a gatekeeper, but I want to have your security mindset at development, integrated in your Git repo, monitored while in production, and even checking your runtime if necessary. If you have any questions, we have a booth over here. We can demo our stuff, but it's not important which stuff you use. There are a lot of stuff that is out there that you can use and just integrate with. But please do so. Thank you so much for listening.